we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means, on infiltration instead of invasion, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. There is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it.
All right, welcome to episode 86 of the Abuse Hour. It is I, your host, Coffee Long, coming to you unsupervised, unmedicated, and an unchecked threat to society. So, now this is the fifth time I've tried to record this episode, and I will tell you something, man. Well, sometimes, I don't know what the holdup was, but it's like I sit down and record something, and something happens, something else happens. I was trying to drive back from the airport, and dude, I recorded this episode like I was sick. I got sick for a little while, and I'm driving. I'm like, yeah, I feel a little better, man. I'll record something on the way home, and dude, I got off the most boomerist, Fed postiest, rantingest, unsavory, like flying at the fucking fences, yelling at the TV type deal. And I'm like, man, I can't post this. This is just idiocy, dude. But I'll tell you something. I don't know what it is. Like there's definitely something in the blood, man, that like certain things just, I mean, like I listened to a Black Pilled episode the other day, and Devin Stack was talking about like the first time he heard bagpipes, and it's like there's a part of you that's older than you, and like it just hits him, and he was like, holy shit, what is this? I need more of this. And dude, I love hearing some bagpipes as well. But there, other things like this. Quite honestly, this thing with England, with this fucking clown dick talking about like, we'll come to America, no one is above the law, we will prosecute you to the fullest power of the crown. And I'm like, bring your fucking ass, dude. It like, I don't know what it was, but it just hit me in a kind of a way that like, the fuck you will. And I was screaming at the TV, man. It was like the paper boys outside, and I'm some far out old man screaming at the news, and he's like, I think Mr. Long is in there and he's pretty out of his fucking mind. It was quite special. But I was like, yeah, man, I'm not putting that out there. That's bad noise, dude. It's cold takes and bad action. So no thanks. So I started recording again, and then it was like, I had been, like I always record on my phone because like I'm driving a lot, and then people will call with bullshit. Like some guy I work with calls to tell me about his fucking kid, and I'll, stop fucking calling me and interrupting me. I'm trying to get my rant on, trying to help the good people out. Yeah, so now I'm laid up in my secret underground lair, and I'm going to finally get this thing out, which is just as well, because there's a lot going on, but then it's like, it's not like there's anything going on that hasn't been going on for the last who the hell knows how long. It's all bad noise, and it's all still going. So I figure we would talk real quick about some of the domestic shit going on with which idiot do you want to watch flush the toilet on what used to be this country, and then hit some of the international scene with some stuff going on in Israel and a little bit of this stuff going on in Russia, because I see so many broke takes over the stuff going on with Kursk, with Ukraine, and this kind of thing, and it honestly is very painful to look at and to listen to when people are that. I don't know what the word for it is, man. Maybe it'll come to me when we get there. But then lastly, kind of vis-a-vis this thing in England, I wanted to give kind of 2 cents, I guess, on, I don't know, what do you call it? Like the cop question, like the state of copfulness. Because, I mean, I guess sort of by way of a preview, coming from a fascist perspective, and just as white people in general, we value an orderly society. And honestly, I think that is a way that we've seen so many of these societies in Europe get taken over, is because people value an orderly society. And when somebody comes to them and they're like, hey, you're not being orderly, you got to let, young Tyrone here go to school with your 4-year-old. And it's like, okay, I guess, if everything's going to be orderly, and then it's not, but then they come to you again and say, oh no, the problem here is actually you. You're making it disorderly. So what do we make of this? How can we approach this? What perspective can we take, and what perspective can we push to other people? Firstly is, though, the domestic situation, man. The domestic situation is tip top. And I guess it's shaping up where it's bizarre to me. Like something I'm looking at is that it's factions, I want to say it. I mean, factions insofar there are interests in play that are not readily apparent to you. And I mean, for us, we kind of understand, yeah, no shit, genius. I'm aware of that. But I mean, it's very confusing looking at what's going on between, you would say a Kamala camp and a Trump camp. But when I see things like the Trump assassination attempt, for one, obviously it has become obvious anyway, that there's a lot more to it. There are players involved that are not readily apparent. So I guess the other day, the kid who is accused to have taken these shots, all 8 shots all by himself, that got to a position that it's completely unreasonable for him to have been in. This kid's body was cremated. Poof, bang, zoom, gone, at the direction of the FBI, as I understand it. So the kid's body gets cremated. Some congressman who's part of the investigation says, yeah, I wanted to actually see for myself and see that everything was as reported. Oh, no, you can't look at his body. That's gone. As I understand it, the guy's house was scrubbed, trash was removed, silverware was removed, everything was removed. A lot of shit was interfered with. So that kind of thing, it lends that look that there are bigger players involved in this game. Now, when you look at the other side of this thing, you look at this Kamala situation, and they're talking about how a lot of these what you would consider like leftist, destabilization squads, like your Antifa, a lot of these people, like young communists or whatever the fuck we're calling it now, a lot of these Marxist type organizations are getting trucked in and bussed in and dropped off to raise hell outside of her events. There's some Palestinian interests there that are going to go in there and raise hell. But then it's like, if you're going to yell at her about you should do more for Palestine, maybe because she is bunny ears, the vice president, but I don't know to what degree she's in a position to actually do anything for any Palestinians. It's not like a vice president can sign off on anything. They're basically just, you go out here and handle the shit the president doesn't want to do. You're not going to actually sign anything or make anything a fucking law. You're just kind of a face in the crowd. You're just one more part of the machine. You're the deciding vote, as she has been a few times, and we'll get to that. But it just seems weird to me that they're going to wheel out all of these people to say, hey, yeah, get out here and raise hell on this Kamala broad. And I don't know if it's a function of everybody's gotten to the point where they hate leftist protesters, they hate Antifa, they hate all of this shit. So they're saying, hey, we know that everybody hates this shit. We're going to roll it out so whatever's on the opposite end of that protesting, then people will magically be for it. I think that's probably a possibility. In fact, if I think about it, I got to think that's the only possibility, because on the other side of this is, I see Trump just on absolute bended knee. I'm seeing pictures of him giving talks where he's got American flags paired up there with Israeli flags. You live in an occupied country, plain and simple. If somebody can't see that at this point, come on, man. He's talking about, I saw one clip where he's talking about like, hey, if you don't vote for me, there might not be an Israel. And I'm like, whoa, really? Well, tell me more. Tell me more about this, because I'll vote for whatever rhymes with that. I think you're lying to me, but let's talk more about that. But Trump, I think we've beaten this horse pretty much to death. There's not too much else to talk about with this guy. It's been pretty straightforward that this guy talks like he is your pal. I still haven't heard him say a word about, the good and decent people that got rolled up on January 6th and are still sitting in solitary. And I think something came out the other day. Like, if you look at Revolver News, it's kind of a really broke dick conglomeration of boomer tier libertarian type stuff. But once in a while, there will be something there that means something. So you could look at it and like, oh, that might actually happen, or this might actually be relevant. And I saw something on there about there was a January 6th detainee, if you like, that had just won some court case of some type, and they were looking at getting cut loose. But it's 4 years, dude. These people have been locked down for 4 years, and as I'm understanding it, at the hands of foreign hirelings, like proper Nigerians throwing them downstairs and beating the shit out of them and what have you. So I'm not completely sure, understand, these people went in there at the direct behest of your Donald Trump. So even if they got a little out of hand, just like us here, everybody's got to mind their P's and Q's. Don't say the wrong thing in the chat. Don't say the wrong thing on the podcast. Don't post the wrong picture. Don't post something as being construed as something that would pimp somebody to do something stupid. And where are you at on that one, Big Don, Zion Don? Where are you at on that? You're going to get out here and you're going to hook these people up? You're going to cut them loose? Hasn't said a word about it. So for my money, in the event the guy gets in there, I think maybe it'll be time just so those people just get, oh yeah, well, the cases fell apart and, whatever, let's all just start over or whatever the fuck. But I don't think he's going to say anything about it. If he does anything, he'll just take credit in the form of yeah, they knew I was coming, so they cut him loose, which is, again, not anything. He had time to cut loose all of the Hebrew criminals, coin clipping accusations and what have you, but didn't have time for these people before he left office. So I think that kind of speaks for itself. Looking over at the Democrat side of the House, I don't know, maybe the word is out that the fix is in or some kind of thing, because I have never seen such caliber of stupidity. This clown that they've picked for the VP spot, this Tim Walz guy, governor of Minnesota. And if you hadn't seen, Minnesota is basically new Somalia. And I don't think it's a coincidence that a lot of these Muslims, these Somalians, these Nigerians, these ne'er-do-wells, right? These usurpers, I don't think it's an accident that they set up shop on borders, that they're setting up shop directly on the border with a Canada, because I believe 1,000% that there are people bouncing back and forth, maybe going over to Canada with, hey, take your brother and your cousins and your uncle's ID, go over there, pretend to be each of them at a different spot, sign up for benefits, get a bank account opened, and then get your ass back here, do the same thing in Michigan or in Minnesota. I don't doubt it for a second, man, because staying alive for a regular person is a full-time job. But somehow these people, they've got time to run for office and horse around and run all manner of rackets. And they've managed to get the Minnesota state flag replaced with, I shit you not, you got to look it up if you're unfamiliar with it. It's basically a carbon copy of a Somalian flag. If Somalia was a sitcom, this would be the spinoff of Somalia the show. You could call it Barbed Wire or Bad Coffee or Bullet Holes in a Wall or something. It's a spinoff of Somalia. Just take a look at it. But this guy's also credited with, I guess somebody was floating the idea of a nickname, Tampon Tim, because he's a guy that was all about let's get tampons in these boys' bathrooms, because there's one thing a teenage boy needs, it's tampons to fuck around with. And, so very, very LGBT queerty, which honestly, for my money, that shit is 2000 and late, man. That ship has sailed, and especially after this Olympics debacle. That to me is fuck you. Nobody is into that shit. It's the blue hair crowd, the too fat to get a date, I'm going to pretend I'm just not into it crowd. Those people, yeah, they'll say they're into anything that gets them 5 minutes of fame, but regular people, they don't give a shit about that anymore, I don't think. I guess also he was a guy whose wife was on, Twitter or X or whatever, cheering on the looting and the rioting during the Dirty Black Summer. And if I recall correctly, it was his daughter that was on there talking about, yeah, I have it on good authority that National Guard's not getting deployed until Monday, so you're free through the weekend. Get out there and take a stand or raise a fist and resist or whatever the hell it is that these people say. So, these are people actively, not just standing by, but they're out there encouraging the destruction of your society. And now you're yeah, we're going to bring this cat in as our number 2. Some of the other hits for this guy was a deal where they had cops armed with paintball guns going around enforcing curfew by going around shooting people with paintball guns. And I'll tell you, man, that's one, it's in bad fucking taste. It's just not fucking cool, dude. I mean, if it was like, my kid or my woman or my, my parents, hobbling around outside, horsing around, and now here comes some asshole, pop, 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 and starts lighting them up. What if somebody falls down, breaks a fucking hip? What if you catch some kid in the eye? This shit happens, dude. I mean, and it sounds silly. It really does sound silly. Like, you'll put an eye out, but I mean, it's a valid concern. Like, we use paintball guns to train for urban work in the spec ops scene. So you have like your opposing force and your, Joey bad guy. And when the crew comes through, and it's like you got this mock-up town you're working in. And it's like when the crew comes through, all right, you're going to wait for them to take a turn over here at the bank. And when about half of the force is on this street, you're going to light them up from this direction and this direction and see if we can't split the force, see how they react. But you don't just pop up with like blanks. Like, they got to work with blanks. And maybe one or two of them will have paintball guns to serve as like an automatic weapons simulator. Like, hey, this is a no shit. You're going to put your head down when this starts shooting back at you. But you pop up and you got a paintball gun, and dude, that shit hurts, man. That shit hurts. And I'll tell you that even in the military, where you can't really sue the federal government for like, oh yeah, I was training and I got hurt. Well, tough shit, dude. What the fuck do you want? This is what you signed up for. You can't come back and hassle them. They're still in your ass about the safety considerations of you wear your fucking iPro. As soon as this training piece starts, everybody's got iPro on, and you will keep it on. I don't care how foggy it gets, but until the whistle blows or the call comes out, index, and the exercise is over, you're going to keep that iPro on, because that shit will fuck you up, dude. Those things come out of there whipping. And I guess, there's a good few of them, and I have no doubt, probably there was some cop with that Minnesota crew that knew how these things work, that you can crank the pressure up on those things, and you can light somebody up pretty good. You'll leave a nice welt on somebody. So, I mean, if it's like a young kid or even a teenage kid, or, your folks out in the garden getting 5 minutes of sun or something, and now here comes some asshole, pop, 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 and like welts up your mom, or she falls and like, oh God, and toddles down the stairs and fucks up an ankle. Dude, this is not a well thought out idea at all. This is a guy fucking around because he knows there's nothing you can do about it. Well, probably the most, I want to say disrespectful one with this guy, and maybe disrespectful is not the right word, just kind of cavalier, fuck it, I can do what I want, kind of childish one that I heard about this Tim Walz guy, was going around telling people that he was a command sergeant major. So this guy apparently was a National Guard dude, stayed in the National Guard a real long time, deployed to Italy in some kind of support capacity, and then was going around talking about how he was an OEF, Operation Enduring Freedom, which is specific to Afghanistan, veteran of that, combat vet, command sergeant major. So, look, man, two things. I'm not trying to knock anybody that acted in a support role. You want my honest opinion, that was probably the smart money. You get out there, get your college money, get your check in the box, get your favorable, home loan rate, whatever. Get that shit, get the fuck out. Israel thanks you for your service, and let that be the end of it. As far as saying that he did things or involved in things that he was not part of, like, look, I don't hold my military service in such regard that, and honestly, I did at a time, way back when I just got in there, I was like, yeah, bro, I was fucking stoked. And I would tune somebody up if they were like, oh yeah, I'm one of you dudes, and like, what? And then you actually see that once in a while. You'd see somebody that say they're, part of some kind of special operations crew, and they're not. I actually had a dude do this to me in Tacoma, Washington. I was up there for this exercise, and I'm in a bar and I'm at this hotel bar, if you can imagine that, hanging out late, and I'm wrapping it up, and I'm talking to these two clowns, and this guy, this fucking jamoke, is talking about, we're just kind of bullshitting about, I don't remember what, like you do with whoever's at the hotel bar. We're talking about something about different places, cool places to go, countries to see or whatever. And he's talking about some places, and I was like, sounds like you traveled a bit, man. I'm like, what business? He was like in sales or some shit. I'm like, you travel a lot for your work now? And he's like, oh, no, I was what I was doing before. And he got that look on his face, and I'm like, fuck, please don't. And I'm like, what did you do before? And he's like, he does the thing, man. Like the fakers do this fucking thing. Like they're looking around like, it's pretty cool, man. I don't know if I should tell you. And you're like, you're just cringing inside. Like, here it comes. And here he comes with it. He drops it, man. And he's talking about he's part of the same organization that I was at the time part of. And I was like, really? When did you go through training? And he's like, oh, man, I can't talk about that. I'm like, is that right? I'm like, look. And I look at the dude. I was like, look, just don't say anything else, and I'm going to let it drop. I'm just going to forget you said it. Just don't say anything else. And he's like, no, man, what the fuck are you talking about? And so there's two guys I'm sitting here talking to, and these two guys obviously work together. And the guy that he's sitting with, like, I think he's been snowing this guy, like, however long he's worked at whatever he does now. He's been going around telling people that, like, yeah, I'm Johnny Operator. I'm heavy hitter, man. I can't talk about it, bro. Secret squirrel, bro. And his friend looks at him like, oh, man, you're going to fuck this guy up? And he looks at me, and, like, he's confused, like, wires are crossed, like, something's not right. And I'm like, look, dude, I'm wearing, and at the time I was wearing, I'm like, look, I'm wearing a shirt from a bar in Thailand. I'm wearing a watch that costs more than your car. Don't say anything else, and we'll just leave it be. And he's like, and this guy, no shit, he's like, no, fuck you, dude. And he stands up and comes around the corner of the bar. And I'm like, well, at least you got a spine. Zap! And I turn this guy's lights off. And his friend gets up. And I'm like, don't, dude. Don't do it. And he's like, looks at his friend and looks at me. And I'm like, you know what's going on here. And by now, like, the hotel security's coming over. Hey, we're going to have to ask you to leave. I'm like, don't ask me to leave. Ask this guy to leave. I'm going upstairs to my room. But, yeah, you see this kind of shit once in a while. It's very bizarre, and especially in such a small world. It's only, maybe people don't know how small those communities are, because it really is. It's like 2 or 3 questions. And, like, yeah, you're full of shit, dude. Like, what kind of underwear are you wearing right now? Like, what? Like, oh, fuck, here we go. See that? It only took one. But, yeah, this Tim Walls guy, though, saying that, like, oh, yeah, no, I'm Command Sergeant Major. You know, I was OEF, bro, weapons of war, carrying weapons of war. And I guess that's what he's talking about, you know, and he's pushing for this, you know, not automatic weapons ban, but what do you call it? Like banning rifles, banning every fucking thing, everything they want to ban. And he's talking this shit, and then people look into it, and it's like, no, dude, you were never any of these things. So to kind of draw the distinction, you know, in the military, in the U.S. military, and pretty much almost every military now, there's still that distinction between enlisted and officer. And if you're unaware, the distinction there is that this is kind of based on the old English system where it's aristocrats and common people, you know, like the labor, the help. So traditionally, these officers, these are people that are like, you're serious about this job in the military. You're probably, you know, your family was in this, you're in this, you went to an academy, you're trained, you understand how things work. And if you're enlisted, you're just some pinhead off the street. Like maybe you can't even spell your name. You know, like make your mark here and we'll give you 20 pieces of 8 every first of the month, you know, and then you're our man. But if you get caught slipping, that's you hanging, right? Whereas like an officer, if they fuck up, they can just, you know, resign their commission and now you go on your merry way, just like quitting a job. I mean, it's a job you put a lot of effort into getting, but you're not as likely to do time or stand in front of the man over, you know, a fuck up as, say, an enlisted dude would. So to put kind of a, you know, at the risk of putting too fine of a point on it, if, for instance, like the most senior enlisted guy at an organization, at a military command, was to be in a situation opposite the brand newest O1, fresh off the street, still has some of the plastic on him, officer, like a, you know, young, early 20-something officer, zero experience, absolute dum-dum. And if they're out, say, at a bar and the senior enlisted dude happens to be out there, if there's some kind of altercation, and, you know, say the officer gives a little shove and the enlisted dude gives a shove back and that guy falls, say hurts himself a little bit, comes in with a black eye or comes in with a little hitch in his giddy up, and the boss says, hey, what happened? Come in here and tell me what happened. And it comes out that there was some kind of physical altercation between officer and enlisted, even though this enlisted guy, he could have been in between 20 and 30 years. I mean, guy could have 25 years under his belt, and this guy's got less than a year. that enlisted guy will be in chains immediately, if not sooner. The military police will roll in and lock that guy down, and they will make a show of it because there will be no disrespect of the hierarchy, of the aristocracy, right? So that guy is going to be assumed to be wrong. You put your hands on an officer. That's, and if that guy, God forbid, the guy like falls, cracks his head open and dies, you could be looking at like a guaranteed death sentence, like firing squad at dawn type shit. They take it 1,000 degrees of serious. So that's to kind of draw the distinction between officer and enlisted. And I'm saying that for a reason, because what you've got then among the enlisted ranks is in any military service, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, you're going to have the senior enlisted guy within that military organization. You've heard of the term Master Chief, the same like Command Sergeant Major. This would be like the senior enlisted guy, like the first among sled dogs. Like Command Master Chief, this would be the first among sled dogs in a Navy organization. So it's that very, very senior guy that acts as the go-between between that officer class and that enlisted class. So a guy like this is very carefully selected, very carefully handpicked, kind of groomed. You go to lots of special training for like, look, this is some of the politics involved. This is how to navigate this. This is making sense of this very archaic system in a world where you might have some enlisted guy with a master's degree, and now you've got this pinhead officer with his bachelor's degree walking in here thinking he's smarter than everybody in the room, and he's going to walk in here and try to lead, bunny ears lead. I'm a leader of men. And he's going to try to lead guys that have been doing this job, I mean, honestly, since this kid was in grade school in some cases. This is the guy that's going to act in that senior role. So to step in and say that like, yeah, I did this, that's like, you're working at UPS and saying that like, yeah, I was the CEO at UPS or some shit. Like, well, no, dude, you drove a truck there and there's, that's a decent job. That's good work. If you did a good job, then good on you. But don't walk in here saying that you're something that you're very clearly not. That's all kinds of fucked up. Because what does that say? I mean, one, what does that say about you, how you feel about the work you did? It says that you think this is not enough, or maybe you just have the need to embellish a little bit. And yeah, I understand people embellish on resumes, but there's embellishing and there's outright bullshitting. So this guy was talking about, oh no, that was a misstatement and people misunderstood. And when I say, I was in OEF, letting people misbelieve that you were in Afghanistan when you were in fucking Italy, filing papers, which again, nothing wrong with that. But don't say you did a thing that you didn't do, all right? That's fucked up. And that's the other thing, I guess, about this that really rubs me the wrong way, because this is something that I've seen too, is where people will hint at a thing and then just let you misbelieve it. So we see this a lot. We'd see this a lot with tech support people. So in the special operations scene, you'll have varying degrees of technical support. And this could be anything from the guy who maintains the Humvees, the guy who keeps inventory of the guns, the guy who helps pack the parachutes, any of this stuff. These are all support roles, admin support. There's even like weather reports, right? Somebody that can be attached to the intel people, and they're weather specialists. They're meteorological specialists of some kind. And it sounds corny, but that actually matters. If, for instance, you were going to parachute into a target, which that don't really happen. If you got a parachute in, that's the only way you could get in. So how the fuck are you going to get out, right? That's not typically ideal. But hypothetically, you're going to parachute into a place. If it's going to be high winds, I'm going to probably want to know that, all right? If it's going to be no moon and now I got to worry about running into guys in the air or landing on somebody else or landing in the side of a building, I probably want to know that, right? So you're going to have that weather person in there saying, yeah, tomorrow, sunny and 70, and then at nighttime it's going to be, 35% illumination, winds out of the southwest, 10 to 15 miles an hour. Okay, cool. Or if it's going to be really shitty weather and you're going to be walking in where it's going to be raining sideways and zero illumination, that's good to know too, man. This is ideal operating weather because everybody else is going to be hunkered down like, fuck this, just waiting for it to end. That's prime operating weather. Nobody's looking for you. So just walk on in. No big deal. So What you'll see sometimes, though, is people that fill these technical support roles, they'll stay in the community for years and years. Like where a lot of people will rotate in and rotate out, like they'll rotate in and they'll be like, these guys are assholes, I'm out of here, and then they'll take off. But other people will just stay and they're like, yeah, I'm with this team over here, I'm that team over there. And then you go places and these people will end up with you because like they have been around so long, they know how shit goes. Like, yeah, we need all these radios, we need all this shit set up, this whole comm situation set up. That'll be the guy, and he'll be running that show because he's been there so long. So when that guy is around more and more, now you're going to start getting this like, oh yeah, you're out in town or something, you're at the bar, imagine that. And people are like, what are you doing here? And all the operators are going to tell you like, oh, we're with, the fucking Goodyear blimp. I fold the blimp after they land it. Or, dude, we were in Toronto and I told this story that they were building a SeaWorld in Toronto and that they had it all built, but they had to keep the whole thing covered up because after they got the whales in there, they just started figuring out that it was too cold in Toronto and that the top of the ice or the top of the tank would freeze over and the whales couldn't get up and breathe. So I had to go out there every night and like and break the ice until they could get the heater properly installed. And people believed it, dude. They thought there was actually a SeaWorld somewhere in Toronto that just wasn't open yet. I'm like, yeah. They're like, oh, that's so nice of you. Look out for the whales. I'm like, yeah, I'm a good person. I like wildlife. I like whales and stuff. What are you doing after, But so these cats, though, they'll be out there and they're like, oh, yeah, I'm with, I can't really talk about it too much, but I'm with, I'm with the Team X over here doing the thing. And they're like, oh, really? Oh, cool. But they'll never say that like, oh, I'm an operator over here. They'll just let you believe, or they'll kind of hint at it until somebody guesses. And then they'll be like, yeah, yeah, pretty much, you're a good guesser, And they'll just let people believe that like, oh, this guy says he's part of OEF. I'm guessing he was in Afghanistan. And they're like, oh, man, I heard it sucks in Afghanistan. He's like, yeah, that's what everybody says. He's not going to deny it. He's not going to say, well, no, I wasn't there. But he's going to leave that wiggle room for like, yeah, I hear the same thing. Not because it's what everybody I was there with says, but it's what everybody I hear say just like you do. Because I'm not going to tell you that I wasn't actually there. So it's just, and it's a little thing. It just kind of rubs people the wrong way. Like, what are you doing here, you little weasel dick? But so this guy tried to say like, oh yeah, it's a big misunderstanding, I just sort of a misstatement. And then somebody came out with like one of these challenge coins deals that this guy gave to him. And it says Command Sergeant Major right on it. It's got like the little rank insignia. It's like, yeah, dude, that's hard to mistake. Like you're saying that you're this thing that you are very much not. Of course, nothing ever came of that, just like having a top secret server in your bathroom, which, again, a major no-no depending on who you are. But if it's other people, just make a big fucking deal about it. Just let it go, guy. Man, is this really it? This is what you want to argue about? Oh my God, bro. OMG. But so yeah, the guy's kind of a slipknot. And looking at some of the policies that they're pitching, this is like, when you go to a third grader and you ask them, what do you want to ask Santa for? And they've been indoctrinated enough. This is the kind of shit they come up with. They come up with like, I want affordable housing for everybody and I want prices to be lower. And it's like, come on, what are you talking about? We're going to fight inflation. And so what? They're talking about we're going to fight inflation. We're going to make it so we're going to fix price gouging. I'm going to make a law against price gouging. And then I'm also going to make it so that, poor people, bunny ears, like people who really just ain't working, because the bar for poor enough to get help is pretty fucking low. So if you're not working at all and you're just hanging out at the house, then we're going to give you some money, going to give you a little hookup and get you in a house. We're going to get you in a house. So how are you going to make all this shit happen? How the fuck do you think it's going to happen? But I've seen a bunch of talking points on this, and so much of this is so blatantly dishonest that they're talking about, well, you say you're going to stop price gouging. These grocery stores, man, they make money, bro. So all they're going to do is they're just going to have to stop stocking stuff that, is so flexible and, it's more stable. You see, it's going to stabilize prices. I'm like, what are you fucking talking about? It's like there's this complete failure to grasp all of the moving parts. It's like how people would talk about you want a steak, but you don't want a butcher, right? Like, oh, I'm all for animal rights. Are you for steaks? Are you for chicken? Are you for the occasional hot dog? Oh, fuck yeah. Okay, well, where do you think those things come from? All right, you want all this shit. This is the shit that comes with it. And this grocery store thing is like, oh, we want to see healthy food. Okay, well, that means farmers. That means ranchers. That means slaughterhouses. That means trucking. And trucking means diesel. And it means roads. And it means paying people to work at every part of this mechanism. So when prices are all fucked up, or when currency is all fucked up because you people keep borrowing it into existence and then sending it overseas, when that stuff is all fucked up and it takes increasingly more and more and more and more to make a job livable, and that's not because there's some guy that owns a ranch or some guy that owns a farm that's like, he's just raking it in, man. That guy's going crazy making money. I'm making so much money. It's crazy in here. That guy's not making crazy money. The guy driving the truck ain't making crazy money. Who's making crazy money? The guy overseeing this whole fucking process to make sure bunny ears prices aren't gouged and poor people can get a shake too. And what I think people fail to appreciate, man, and you'll dig this, and maybe you can use this for an argument on your own, Thanksgiving is coming up, right? Is, you ever go into like an auto parts store, and if you go to the section where they're selling oil, like motor oil, right? And a lot of times, they used to anyway, they'll have like one of these like gear setups, and it's to simulate the gears in your engine, right? And you turn the little crank and the gears go around and you get to watch them go around. You're like, that's fucking cool, But you do this thing, you turn the gears in, you put a little oil, and you like, see, it turns a lot easier when there's lubrication in there. But now, if you compare that to when the stuff you always hear about, like in any kind of science class, where like every time you put energy into a system, some energy is going to be bled away, right? Like, so you turn one gear and it turns another gear. If you're applying 10 pounds of pressure, it's not going to give you 10 pounds at that other end because of the friction, right? Some of that energy is going to be bled away in the process. And it's the same thing with like a much bigger mechanism like your engine. So you've got this big engine, you've got all these gears in there. Well, I mean, trying to turn just one of them, that ain't going to fucking happen, man. You're going to have to put a fuck ton of effort into that. And the lubrication that makes it work easier in a car or, a gear system like that, that's oil that makes it work easier, that makes it fucking function. In a society, that thing is money. All right, so you put the money in there and it allows it to go around and around and around. All right, along with, consumer compliance and confidence. But every time you turn this thing, a little bit of it gets bled away. So you put $1,000 in here, you're not getting $1,000 out over there. You're getting way less because some of that's going to get bled away to make this thing go around. And the more gears you push into this thing, you add gears and I'm going to make a smaller gear to make this other one go faster. And the more you try to cheat this fucking thing, the more money is going to get bled away out of it. That's why you can't just jump into your car and throw it straight into third gear and take off, right? Because it's not geared for that. It's not going to fucking work. The energy you're putting in isn't sufficient to make it go the way you're asking it to go. And it's the same thing here. So these motherfuckers talk about like, we're going to put this system in play. I got this program in mind. The program they're talking about is a bunch more fucking gears that they're going to shove into this machine. And instead of adding like a nice lubricant to make the whole thing run smoother, they're going to try to bleed away as much energy as possible to make sure that they get theirs. Like I'm gonna put my cousin Ira over here to oversee this program to make sure that poor people get a seat at the table too. And Ira isn't going to try to make this thing run smooth enough. He's going to make it run just smooth enough so you shut up. And if a few people can get theirs, like, Tyrone and he bitches, he got himself a house now because he get a loan now. Never mind that, like, that's $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 out of taxpayers' pockets to get this guy $25,000. And where's that extra money going? Where's that extra energy going? Straight into Ira's pocket. And we're going to get it called like, it's a maintenance fee. It's the cost of doing business. And all these wheels are getting greased. But who's not getting greased? You're just getting fucked. all you're getting is your pocket picked. So all of these programs, man, every time you hear it, dude, that's all I can hear. Every time I hear, we're going to put a program for this and a program for that, and it's going to make it just so, all I can think of is you're just shoving an extra gear into this machine. And you're going to do your damnedest to make sure you can bleed away as much as possible before anybody notices. And then if somebody does notice, you'll just change the gear out and like, oh, it wasn't corruption. It was just that gear was fucked up. So we got a better idea, though. We're going to actually put 2 gears. And yeah, okay, great. Terrific. But the way they're talking about, though, we're going to make it so, grocery stores can't bunny ears price gouge you. I mean, it's been old news that things like, you talk about like a Walmart, how things are cheap there. And because it's so big and systematized that there's some stuff that they don't even make money on. So, I don't know, stuff that you're going to always come in there for, bread, right? Some brands of bread. You probably they're not going to make anything on that. They're not making any money on that because you're going to come in here and buy that shit anyway. What they're going to make money on is the other shit that you're going to get while you're here. You're coming in here for bread? Well, let's see what we can do with like your peanut butter, your jelly, your mayonnaise, right? Maybe that's where they make their money instead. So yeah, dude, bread, it's incredibly cheap here. Oh, but this mayonnaise is not cheaper than anything else. Yeah, but how often do you buy it? Fuck it, just get it. So it's stuff like that. They've got it. They got it all figured out. They got it on a system. But the thing is now, like a bigger place like your Walmart, they can have these systems worked out. But your smaller mom and pop type places, these people don't have the manpower or the computer programming power to sit down and like, all right, if we make only a little bit of profit on this, then we also know that people are going to buy, if we make only a tiny bit on bread, we also know that they're going to buy peanut butter and jelly, or maybe the other way around. We don't make shit on peanut butter and jelly, but if you're buying that, you're definitely buying bread. So let's fuck them on bread. Whichever way it works, right? They don't have the manpower to do that. They don't have the computing power to do that. But who does? Walmart. So they're talking about like, yeah, no, everybody's accusing us of like, oh, it's going to be like communism. But, no, all we're saying is we're basically price fixing. And when you price fix and nobody can keep up unless they have, unless you're a Walmart, you can't keep up if you're not Walmart. So what happens then? Now all stores become Walmart. Now you've got a single vendor, and now what do you have? Well, now you have basically Soviet Russia. You're at the mercy of fucking Walmart. So if Walmart isn't making enough of a profit, or Walmart decides you don't need this shit, or if the anti-price gouging rules dictate that something with a price that's too flexible, maybe some kinds of produce, maybe some kinds of beef, maybe there's some kind of chicken flu, bird flu fucking situation where a bunch of poultry has to get killed, and now the price of chicken should go up, but it can't go up because of price fixing, right? Now what do? They just go, well, we can't carry chicken, man, because we're going to lose so much money on chicken and we can't fucking afford it. So now what do you have? All right, well, now you have a run on beef. So now everybody's buying fucking steaks or pork chops because there is no chicken. So when the quantity goes down, the price goes up. The price should go up. But now what happens again? Oh, we can't keep the stuff on the shelves because of price fixing. So now we're talking about black markets. So now you have one official vendor, and now you're talking about a whole black market thing. So what does that sound like to you? You're talking about fucking Soviet Union again. Here we fucking are. But, this broad is going to tell you, oh, no, it's not like that. And why? It's just because joy, dude, because it's a campaign of joy. So, I mean, again, my only real interest in Kamala is the idea that this dumb bitch is going to make this whole thing collapse faster. And I honestly don't think that she's even smart enough to understand the things that she's saying. And in a way, that probably helps her, because if you don't understand that you're lying, it's going to be harder to get caught lying, right? Like, you just go out, they said it would work. Just walk out there and say it'll work. It'll work. Just say you're joyful. I'm joyful, and I have faith. It's going to work. Okay, it's going to work. Anyway, bouncing over to, let's look at the Middle East first, and then we'll get our laugh on about Russia. So the Middle East, man, the bullshit with Israel continues. They're bombing the absolute fuck out of Gaza some more. I guess they blew up some refugee camps. They've blown up some more people in Lebanon. I want to say they hit somebody in Syria the other day, but I can't fucking remember. I mean, they just kind of do as they will, man. I mean, the whole of the law, do as you will, right? What's that sound like? However, after their most recent fuck-up, sending a missile straight into Tehran on presidential inauguration day to kill what they say was a Hamas guy, but who, as it were, was the chief negotiator and really the best chance for getting a decent negotiation worked out. They just missile struck that guy. And Iran was pissed. And what's ridiculous is these Jews come out with like, oh God, they're going to, oh my God. I mean, they come and they just like fucking stab you in the leg and then go running with their hair on fire. Like, oh God, they're crazy. They're going to do something. Somebody help. And it's so fucking ridiculous. The U.S., of course, in true American, Zionist-occupied government fashion, has spun up fucking everybody, all hands on deck, sending fucking everybody to the Middle East, including, one nuclear sub, the Georgia, which I guess is, and I don't really know shit from subs, but I guess, as I understand it, is just this monster sub. Absolutely huge. Huge sub, incredibly large sub, not fucking around. Nobody can believe how big this sub is, but I saw it and I said, this is a really big sub. And everybody said, yeah, it's incredible. You're not going to believe it. So they sent this fucking thing. And I guess from the most recent imagery I saw the guess was that this sub was in the Med and would presumably launch missiles up and over like an Iraq or a Saudi to lob them into Iran if that is, something they intend to do. They've also got the Roosevelt Carrier Strike Group and the Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group en route, which just passed the Straits of Malacca in the last couple of days. And I mean, it's basically like everybody get your ass out here. But what appears to be a possibility is that Iran says, okay, well, guess what? Because, I mean, everybody's been losing their shit about, oh, my God, what are they going to do? And, oh, we expect to strike by Monday. We expect to strike this weekend. We expect to strike, oh, what could it be? They're going to hit Mossad headquarters. Like, just lots of wailing and gnashing of teeth. But one speculation I saw was that Iran is holding off on the possibility that Israel comes to the table and agrees to some kind of a deal with these Palestinians. Now, for my money, when you've passed 40,000 killed, I mean, understand that, like, I don't think the Russia-Ukraine thing has even broken 40,000 yet. The whole U.S. involvement in Vietnam, and that was, what was it, like 65 to 75 or something like that? That was only 50,000, I want to say 53,000, something like that. So understand like how big this number is, man. This is a big fucking number, 40,000. All right. And they've passed 40,000 and the majority of those are non-combatants. Those are people that are not part of this fucking fight. Because you can't have, obviously they get weapons into Gaza, but you can't have that shit proper. They don't have a proper military. All right. So it very much is just a resistance network, but they're still just bombing the shit out of the place. And I saw a graphic the other day and it was something like the amount of bombs dropped on Gaza has exceeded something like it's exceeded World War I and World War II and Iraq combined, some shit like this. I don't remember how much. It was a fuck ton, basically. Like, these people are going fucking whole hog. It sucks if you're Palestinian. But what I will say, though, is that even to the degree that Israel has its hooks in this country, I mean, the victim card is fucking out the window, man. Like, you can just say goodbye to that shit. And I have absolutely no doubt that any of these Holocaust assemblies that you used to have to sit through in school, I mean, God knows I sat through a shit ton of them, but any of that stuff, I do not doubt for a second that is going to be met with like, fuck you. And people are just going to completely check out of that. And it might be quite nice to get a break from some of that. But, I mean, again, we'll see. They might just do what they always do and, like, just come with the chutzpah and, like, hey, of course, hey, where's my victimization celebration? Where's my victim parade? What about that? What are you doing with the Holocaust education? Come on, get out there. Let's go. Come on. I need to be spoken of favorably. I'll be your guest of honor. Come on. I'll do it for a price. So, who knows? We'll see. But, it does look highly likely that, I don't want to say highly likely. It looks possible that it goes that way, because that way, Israel's going to get to keep all their shit, basically get to keep all of the land they've taken. I don't know how that works things out with Hezbollah. I mean, those people are probably still pissed, but as far as Iran, it lets them save face, not have to strike out, not have to fight America, because that's the direction that would go. I mean, it would be an instant strike. Like, yeah, we're at war with Iran now today. Like, as soon as they launch one thing into fucking Israel, because the last time, I think it was in April, and Israel killed somebody, Iran was like, we have to do something, don't we? We can't just sit here and be somebody's bitch. So it became like, yeah, we're going to let everybody know exactly when. We'll give everybody plenty of heads up, and it'll be a little bitch strike on like an empty airfield. And then, we can go home and, we still got a dead guy. You still achieved your mission objectives. And the best we could do was try to save face on the world stage. I don't know, I don't know how that works out, dude. And I don't know if Hezbollah is going to be cool with that. I'm inclined to think, well, I would be inclined to think they will, but then I would also be inclined to think, like, if you guys got no balls, then fine, we got balls. We'll just fucking go. Because Hezbollah is getting pieced up as well. Like, they're hitting inside Lebanon pretty much at their leisure right now. So we'll see how that goes. But I mean, I'm inclined to think it's going to peter out more than it's going to go hard. If Iran does decide to go hard, my best guess is that it's going to be a lot closer to the election, possibly even between voting night and inauguration. In fact, if it starts looking like Donald Trump was going to come out on top, like win favorably, I would not be surprised if they just go like on election night. Because it becomes a question of like, okay, well, this guy won, but who's actually in charge? Like, Guerrilla Harris is kind of still in charge, and Stuttering Joe, who don't know what fucking room he's in, he's technically in charge. So what are you guys going to do here? I don't know how this works out. And then maybe they try to pull some shit, because I don't think Trump is the guy that Iran wants in there, because Trump is very clearly Israel's man. So it does behoove Iran to strike before Trump has the reins, but it also behooves Iran to wait until all of those ships and all those soldiers and all those sailors and all those Marines have been sitting there a good long time, just sitting there out to sea, just sawing holes in the ocean, waiting. And then, after you've been there a while, now we'll go. All right, but I mean, I guess we'll just have to wait it out and see what happens there. Bumping over to Russia, Ukraine has made this much publicized push into the Kursk region. And dude, I've seen so many news stories where it's, so first let me just say right off the top, this is a fucking joke. This is fucking ridiculous. This is fucking amateur night. All right. These Ukrainians have made this push into Kursk, which, as I am seeing it, is sort of the northern part of the front lines there. And they make this push, and it appears that they were aiming for the Kursk nuclear power plant. So this is after they did some kind of drone attack on the Zaporozhye power plant, and there was some fires, and I guess that had to be addressed. But now they make this push for the Kursk nuclear power plant, and they did not take the plant. All right, so they did not make it to the plant, as I understand it. They sent some of their best units out there to make this push. And had they captured the nuclear power plant, honestly, not blown it up or destroyed it, but captured it, as in, haha, we have it now, that would have been one that would have shown that, yeah, you can make some gains, you can strike unexpectedly, you can take things that are important, and now you can either keep pushing, which isn't going to be a possibility. We'll come to more of that in a second. But now you've got a bargaining chip when time to negotiate comes, which is coming pretty rapidly. What we've seen in the leftist press, though, is just, it's idiotic, man. They're talking about, oh, Russia is on their heels. And like, it's again, like with the Disney thing, like Putin is at his desk, like, oh, like throws papers down and like, oh, I'm being taken over by these plucky upstarts. But the deal is that they sent some of their best units. You're not going to take anything without taking some losses. So you pushed in there. You're going to take losses. So you sacrificed some of your solid soldiers to try to take this nuclear power plant. It didn't work out. So what do you have now? So now they're talking about a couple of these little towns, and I can't remember the name of these fucking towns. And it honestly doesn't matter because the breakdown of these towns I'm hearing on Duran Report is like these are towns of like 5,000-6,000 people. There's only like one town that's worth a shit. It's like 6,000 people that could serve in any way. That like, yeah, this is, you could use as like a checkpoint, that like this is a piece of real estate that we have, that we're holding, that matters in any kind of a way. The rest of this is like dinky ass little towns. So you got to remember that Russia is the biggest, by landmass, biggest country on the planet. Shit is spread out and they're going town to town, and that's got its merits. But, now you didn't take anything worth having. And now all you have is more real estate to hold on to. So the principle there, like the military principle that comes into play, is that fine balance between being spread out enough to not make yourself a single target, but still being consolidated enough to have some ass to your force. All right, the rule of thumb is that if you take territory, you have to defend territory. So if you've got all these little towns and you've got this wide open space, well, if you aim to keep this for some reason, then good for you. But now you have to fucking hold that. So now you're holding a bunch of little towns that don't really do anything for you. You didn't really need this. And you're going to have to still somehow maintain all of the fighting that's going on here on what has been the front lines. So one could say that, Russia's got to spread out as well, because this is, Russia's got to spread out to fight you. If you've got to spread out to defend this territory, yeah, you can make that argument. But one, this is inside Russia's territory. These are Russian towns. This is not disputed territory. So every road right up to these towns is free and easy access, right? So like moving into Ukraine, Russian military has to cross through all of that disputed zone, make their way to the front lines, do their thing, and then make their way all the way back to get whatever supplies and so on, keep these lines open. But these disputed towns in and around this Kursk area, this Donbass area, this is already in Russia proper. Russia can drive out there with supplies. They can fly over with jets. They already have a manpower advantage, and their economy is not currently in default, as is Ukraine's. So it's a head scratcher to look at this and like, what were you fucking thinking when you did this? Like, you just made everybody's job harder. So instead of like fighting along, say, 100 miles of front line, now you're fighting along like 150 miles because you just took this whole other piece. And now it's not really something that you can do anything with. And it's going to be a lot harder to keep resupplied and keep defended. So it's, it's a bold strategy, Cotton. I suppose we'll just see how it plays out. It's not what I would fucking do. But I think it's not what a lot of people would have done. And quite honestly, I don't think it's what any Russian generals thought anybody would do. So they pretty much rolled in there fairly easy. It's like taking over part of the Sahara Desert. Like, look, we have part of your desert. Like, yeah. All right, I guess. All right, we'll address that. That's a method. But yeah, it's pretty much a shit story. But now they're coming out with some new stuff on this pipeline situation, that Nord Stream pipeline that got blown up. Some of the stuff that's coming out is that I don't know. I don't know exactly what the deal is here, but somehow Germany is saying that it has come to light that it was Ukrainian actors who committed this thing, that it was Zelensky who greenlit this thing. I don't know how accurate that is. I personally don't believe that Ukraine has the capability to do this thing, but for whatever reason, this is what Germany is running with. And it appears that they're doing this because of something I just saw before I started recording this, that Germany's not going to be sending aid to Ukraine anymore. They're like, yeah, that's the last of the shekels. No more shekels for you. Fuck that. Enough. So I thought that was interesting. Like, no more shekels, and we'll see what shakes loose from here. But as for how much farther this Ukraine thing goes, who the fuck knows? I will say it's kind of interesting to watch a first world power fighting another first world power because, for so long, like the U.S., like our expectation has been that if you're going to fight with somebody, you roll in, you smash the shit out of them within a couple hours. It's a done deal. Nobody can really match you. And then, and if it's not like that, then the questions start coming of like, well, what the fuck are you doing? Do you have your shit together or not? And when I consider it, it's like, well, the U.S. hasn't really fought like a peer level adversary since World War II. I mean, Vietnam, like, yeah, those are capable people, but this is not a proper organized military. It's very much an asymmetrical situation where you have people that are very much true believers, very much resourceful, very small, very mobile, very agile, not hamstrung by a lot of the same chain of command issues or, honestly, Geneva Convention issues that the U.S. was hamstrung by. But there's definitely the lopsided issue of the technology gap there. And then we saw even more of that with like your Iraq and your Afghanistan. So this asymmetrical situation, this is something that we're very used to, but what we're not used to is watching two countries or two forces go at it that are pretty much on par with each other, where it's like, yeah, these guys are pretty good, those guys are pretty good, these guys have their weaknesses, those guys do, and just seeing how it plays out. So it does seem to be like there's an attrition aspect to this where even if Ukraine has some solid leadership and has some solid people, you just don't have the manpower for this. Even with, all of the dollars and all of the secondhand equipment and I guess the F-16s now that are getting sent, it's not in the cards, dude. It's just not fucking happening. Which apparently seems to be very hard for a lot of people to take. They're like, no, they can win, but you have to fucking defend yourself, bro. And like, this is not that conversation. If you want to talk about what's right or better or proper or any of that shit, we could talk about that. But this is not that conversation. This is just straight economics, man. This is just a seat at the poker table. Like what are the odds that the one card you need is still left in the deck? Pretty fucking slim, man. Can it happen? It can happen. But only if you go all in, and if not, then you're fucked. Is this a bet you want to make? So it ain't my bet to make. I wouldn't make this stupid fuck bet. If I was Ukraine, I would probably do my people the service of not getting any more of them killed. Because quite honestly, what the fuck are you doing? Like dragging people out here with zero fucking experience and slapping a gun in their hands and putting them out there against anything approaching a first world force. I mean, that is amateur night, dude. But hey, I'm not a Jewish comedian, so what do I fucking know about anything? Anyway, the last thing I wanted to wrap up on, man, was this cop question. And the cop question has, I don't want to say it's been so much of a question of late, but it kind of has to be a question, I think, moving forward in terms of, because I mean, I honestly think, I don't think we're going to see another election after this. I really don't. And once that big shitstorm comes and then settles, I think we're going to need expectations, as society rebuilds of like, all right, what do I want to see here? What do I expect here? So I heard a talk the other day where a guy was talking about how the idea of proper policing is a relatively new idea that for the very longest time, especially in the States, this was not something that you had. Like small towns and cities and such, you could have, people that keep an eye on things sort of, but that's just sort of a voluntary thing. And if something went awry, then you would bring somebody in front of a person or group of people who will assess the situation and dole out justice as they see fit. And if that guy acts like an asshole, that guy can either be replaced or strung up, according to the townspeople's wishes. But the idea of having a police force, like something that is functions on its own to enforce law, is a comparatively new idea, as I'm understanding it. So it is an interesting idea insofar as I had read when I was doing grad school, I had read a good few papers on the personality of like the military and law enforcement type of person. And specifically, like the military mindset, there has to be a degree of trust or just a degree of indifference. And that was kind of my case, that like, look, man, I don't know that fucking guy over there, but I'll do him if that's what you people want, like just pull the string and point me over there. I'll go do the thing. When I came into it, I was very much like, flag waving dipshit, like I'm here for America. And then by the time you get there, you're like, this is fucking stupid, man. This is a paycheck and not even much of a paycheck. And, you get good at it and it becomes like any other job that like, yeah, just tell me what you want. I'll go do it, dude. I'll go blow up this guy's fucking door and snatch his ass up, but I don't know him. He didn't do shit to me, whatever. It just becomes like that. I will say there are, even in special ops, there's still the majority of dudes are still true believers, even in the face of glaring evidence to the contrary. Like these are dudes that are like, no, bro, no, America, bro, mom and apple pie, bro, like the Constitution, but Constitution, bro. Like these cats still believe that America is out there somewhere and in need of defending. My personal experience was getting back and getting like a big fuck you all around. Not as much from the military, to a degree, just because I was used up and we don't need anything else from you. Why don't you go fuck yourself? Like, oh, okay, shit, I'll just leave. But, going through divorce, that it was very, very clear that is not just that one person's policy, but in and out of divorce court for several years, because kids were involved. You get to see very clearly that, like, yeah, this country doesn't give two shits about you, dude. If you're a white man, especially a straight white man coming out of the military, you are a fucking threat. That is the only thing they see with you. They don't see a disciplined man, a reliable man, a patriotic man. They see a fucking threat. A threat to their little fucking schemes, and they will do whatever they can do to get rid of you. But even in spite of that, there's still a lot of guys that are like, nah, bro, no, you don't badmouth the red, white, and blue, bro. I'm like, okay, dude. I mean, my family was here before the red, white, and blue, and at least some of my family will probably still be here after the red, white, and blue is fucking gone. But that's, is what it fucking is. As for cops, the difference in some of these studies that I read was it was very much a personality that sees only black and white, like a thing is this or a thing is that. I need shit spelled out very, very simply. And a lot of times this is because these are fairly simple people, man. I mean, it's, as I understand it, not a great paying job. I don't know exactly what you get paid as a cop. I imagine it differs place to place. I think to have that level of trust that, like, yeah, the law I'm going out here enforcing is good and true and right and the best thing I can do. I mean, I think you got to be a simple motherfucker to think that in the first place. Like, to step into that job with that mindset, I don't think you got to be, you got to be a bit of a sucker. I do know, who the fuck was it? I worked with a dude. He was not an operator. He was a support guy that retired and went on to get a gig as a cop. And he came back and talked to some of us, like just informally, like, hey, what's up, fellas? I just thought I'd come around. And he was a nice enough guy. So, it was like, not like a guy that like leaves and you're like, fuck that guy, I hope I never see him again. But he left and came back and we're like, oh, hey, what's up, man? And he told us about some of the process and some of the deal. And he's talking about like they really want like straight arrows, like genuine straight arrows is what they'll prefer. I guess there's a lot of waivers for some degrees of crime and some degrees of drug use, depending on how long ago it was. But this guy's talking about like they really want straight arrows. They want the truest of true believers. And I don't know how they test for any of this shit, but obviously you're going to need to be willing to like, oh yeah, I trust that I'm what's keeping society afloat. Because to me, I don't know how somebody steps into that gig and not feel like you're polishing brass on the Titanic. Like, this shit is going down. What are you even doing out here? Not to mention the good chance of, you run into a 6'5" drug addict tuned up out of his mind, multiple felon that wants to slug it out with you in the street, and then he ODs while you're trying to hold him down, and now you're going to prison. Fuck that. For what? Let the guy run into traffic. Anyway, though, some of these studies I'm seeing, though, that we're talking about, like, yeah, this is a person that sees the world very much in black and white. They have to have things, they're not really good at grasping the abstract concepts. Like, if you skip breakfast this morning, how would you feel now? Yeah, but I ate breakfast, right? They're not good at these abstracts. They're not good at formulating a picture in their head of what might happen 2 or 3 steps down the road if I do X, Y, and Z. Or if 100 guys like me do X, Y, and Z, how is this going to play out? Or the idea that the right and noble law that you've been pimped to go out here and enforce is actually cooked up by some sidelocked shiesty fucker that's taking a kickback to push this thing, and this is the favor he's doing to get a thing from that other guy and to, hook up his ex-wife so she won't say anything about, what he's got in the basement or this kind of thing. Like, all of that is beyond the pale, I guess, for the people that gravitate towards this line of work. So I guess knowing that, it kind of warrants looking at this situation of, like, one, what is it? What should it be? What is it now? And what can we make of it? So, I mean, obviously what it should be is, as a society gets bigger, you can't count on just the guy up the street. As people become more mobile and are going from place to place, town to town, city to city, you've got to have somebody that keeps policies in place, right? That enforces the way we do things around here. I mean, if we are to take a fascist approach, like, what is fascism without some standard of this is the shit you can do, that is the shit you cannot do. Otherwise, you're just a bunch of fucking hippies running around in a field. And if you're going to have laws, you essentially have to have enforcement, because without enforcement, what is a law but a bright idea? Like, it's a suggestion, right? However, where I think the mustard has come off the hot dog is in what is the law, right? What is the law that we're going to enforce around here? And what kind of simple fucks are we wheeling in to enforce these things? And I think this shit that's gone on in England of late is the perfect example, where you can go to one of these guys and say, yeah, those guys over there, you're not going to do anything to them because we're practicing religious tolerance. So leave them alone. Let them riot, let them burn things, let them rape people, let them kill people. That's not your fish to fry. Your fish to fry is just the law. And we will tell you when to enforce it and how to enforce it. Simple enough. And these people are like, okay. And now you got a bunch of white people that go out there. I just saw a guy got like 2 years for being part of this thing, walking down the street talking about Allah, Allah, who the fuck is Allah? Right? Guy got, I think it was 2 years for that. And then some other guy, I mean, I can't count. Somebody posted something on Facebook and got like a year and a half, something like that. I just saw like a little clip this morning where some judge is talking to a guy and is saying, like, yeah, your case is especially troubling because you didn't actually attack anyone and you aren't reported to have said anything, but you were present, so I am going to give you a year. Gave the guy a year locked up because he was present. So literally walking down the street as a white person is now a crime in England. You can be rolled up for a crime just for being there, just standing there. And that's enough to get you locked up. Whereas compared to all these other crimes against children, rapes, murders, whatever, we're going to take a bunch of shit into consideration, take into consideration that the guy felt bad, this kind of shit, whatever. But it sort of brings us to the question of what the fuck is going on here. And I honestly think that you have to look at this thing. You have to look at this thing, I think, from kind of a big picture, abstract perspective and sort of take it in. What is going on? What can I make of it? Because if we think of it as reducing things to a basic level, you're just a guy alive in the world. I don't give a fuck. I don't want to hear any of this bitching about, like, well, you want to drive down the road, don't you? You want electricity, don't you? People stayed alive a long, long time without that shit. So I'm not going to listen to that, all right? If we reduce things to their most basic level, I'm just a guy and I'm alive, all right? If we expand slightly more than that, I got my family, whether that's your mom and dad, whether that's your woman, your prospective woman, your family, your kids, your cousins, your uncles, whatever the fuck. You got your family. They're alive. They're your closest genetic linkage. So you have an obligation to them. So when you start looking at what are my obligations here? What do I feel compelled to look out for? I feel compelled to look out for myself. I feel compelled to look out for my family. That's natural and instinctual. I want to keep them safe. I want life to be as good as possible for them. I want life to be easy as possible for them, as safe as possible for them. One way we can approach that is through an organized society. And that's the idea here, is we approach this through an organized society and say, all right, we're going to have laws where my shit is my shit, your shit is your shit. I won't take your shit if you don't take my shit. When we start laying down laws like this, of like, look, here's the laws, how we're going to do things here. Okay, and like I said, you can't have laws without enforcement, otherwise it's just suggestions. So now we start designating people for like, hey, if we got a dispute, I think this is my sheep, he thinks it's his sheep, how are we going to solve this issue? So we start having ways to iron some of these things out, because just because you have a rule doesn't mean everybody's going to follow it or everybody's going to see it the same way. Okay. So now we start developing a little bit. But all in all, the idea is that, one, it's going to make life better. That's the point of government. That's the point of a fucking society, is to make your life overall better. Some things might be a pain in the ass, but overall it should make your life better, right? And two, that this shit should apply equally to everybody. So if we got a rule that nobody's going to piss in the river that we all get water out of, or where we all wash our clothes because we're, thinking caveman situation. Nobody's going to go and piss in the river. That's the rule here. But this one motherfucker always does it. And the penalty is, anybody gets caught pissing in the river, you get 5 across the eyes. Zap! And you're going to know not to do that shit. Okay, that's the rule. But now here's this fucking guy. Oh, suddenly there's a special rule. This guy he can do whatever he wants. He can piss in the river. How fucking long before your little campsite turns into fucking mayhem? If this rule doesn't matter, then how about I go bang your wife? Does that rule matter? Are we doing that? How about I take your food? How about I burn your fucking house down? Does that rule matter? Oh, okay, no. Now suddenly we got to readjust. Okay, let's go back to all rules apply to everybody. Guys, stop pissing in the fucking river. All right? So the shit's got to apply to everybody. So what we've seen now, especially in UK here lately, is that this shit is not working. This is not making anybody's life better. Do you think any actual English person, and I'm not talking about people holding a fucking passport, I'm talking about actual British people, native white British people, are any of their lives better as a result of the policies that are in place? Fuck no. Trucking in all of these Muslims, trucking in all of these Africans, is that making anybody's life better? Having money taken out of your paycheck to make sure that dude over there that got here a week ago has a nice house for him and his 12 kids? Does that make your life better? Fuck no, it doesn't. Is having your grandmother displaced out of her, what do they call it? Pension flat, pensioner's flat, whatever it is. Council housing, I think it is. Having her kicked out of there to make way for some guy from Nigeria that don't even speak the King's English. Does that make your life better? No, it does not. What are these people doing that makes your life better? Oh, you've got roads, haven't you? You've got electricity, haven't you? All right, that starts to become a flimsy fucking trade-off real fast. All right? When we shift to talking about equal application, everybody's equal under the law, that's right out the fucking window. All right? We see that here. I mean, we definitely see that in the States, where there's definitely some internationale clique that follow a different set of laws than you have to follow. But I mean, nothing like good Lord almighty, the shit you see in the UK now, where a Facebook post, like a literal Facebook post or a resharing of a post, will get you locked up. All right? Is that equal protection under the law? It is certainly not. So I think what you could say is that you've seen a combination of these things where not just is it not helping, it's actively making your life worse. And two, they're treating you differently under the law in order to continue making your life worse, to keep emptying your pockets, to keep stealing from you. Okay, at that point, it's no longer a society. It's rolling right back to that caveman setting where really this is just a marauding tribe. This is just another tribe coming in and saying, yeah, you're going to pay tribute. I'm going to take some of your shit. These are my friends over here. They're under my protection, and you're going to make their life better. So you've been reduced to a slave, essentially. The society, bunny ears, that you live in doesn't make your life better, and it steals from you and treats you much worse than somebody who's favored under the law. That is a slave class. all right, by every definition. And I don't give a fuck what kind of uniform you've got on, and I don't give a fuck if you want to walk out and say, oh, it's ordained by God in heaven. I am God's chosen, whether you're God's chosen or a special person or marginalized or underserved or any of that shit. I think when those two things come into play, where you're actually making my life a lot fucking harder than it would be to get by on our own here, and you're treating me a lot different than you're treating somebody else over there that you're obviously showing preference to, and these things start to play off of each other where you're fucking me over to make their life better and you're treating me shittily, I'd say like the territory is ripe for upheaval. I think pretty fast an intelligent person will look at this and say, this is not at all about law and order. This is not at all about a society. This is just marauding. This is just theft. This is just enslavement. And I don't think a person would be wrong to say, come and fucking get it, dude. Come and fucking get it, because I don't see, and I talked about this before, I think, there has been a lot of studies that talk about where a person will instinctually recognize the benefit a direction goes in. And I'm thinking of one particular experiment where people were handed 2 decks of cards. And the idea was you flip through this thing, and every time you turn over a card with, I don't know, it's like a value of more than 5, you get $1. And when you turn over a card with a value of less than, or what, more than 5, you get $1, less than 5, you lose $1 out of your little stack. With the other deck, it's like $5. So you turn over a card with a value of more than 5 and you get $5. You turn over a card with the value of less than 5 and now you lose $5 out of your stack. So these decks, according to this experiment, are rigged where the one with the smaller gains and losses, the $1 deck, at the end of this thing, it's going to put you up like $10. And this other deck is going to put you down like $20, something like that. So they give them to people and they say, okay, go through each of them and decide which of these you prefer, which of these you like better. So they go through a few of them. They're like, yeah, okay. And I go through the other one. Okay. Go through the other one a little more. Go through the other one. Shuffle them up again. All right, go through this one. Go through that one. They do this for a little while. They never get all the way through it to a point where they can, see decisively like, oh yeah, I lost my ass over here. But they go through, a handful of it a few times and then shuffle it up, go through it again. And before long, people get it in their head without even having to do the counting. They're like, this one over here, this one fucks me over. This one over here, this one works pretty well. Because people's minds are evolutionarily wired to find the better deal, to seek out the better deal, to get that benefit with a little bit less work. So if people's minds are wired that way already, how long do you think it will fucking take before people, even the stupidest son of a bitch, even the most blue-hairedest fat girl that's been programmed since birth, how long is it going to take them to look at society as it is, especially in a place like UK right now, and say, you know what? I think I'd be a lot better off. Like, I'll drive on a dirt road. I'll use fucking candles, all right? I'll go back to carrying water from the river that nobody pisses in. I'll go back to that instead of having to worry that my kid is going to get raped or that my husband's going to get stabbed while he's at work, or that I might say something over the phone and have these parade of assholes show up at my door. You ever see that shit on where these UK clowns, these cops show up to people's houses, and it's not like, hey, we've got warrant, we understand this or that, we need to talk to so-and-so about this or that. They show up and just walk right in. And I'm like, God damn, dude. And it's, I tell you, dude, like something like the American in me, I don't know, like the genetic memory, it sits so poorly with me. I'm like, try that shit, dude. And anyway, I don't want to go any further down that road, but in terms of what can we take away from this, man, I think there's just too many people that just willingly default to this setting of like, oh, it's what it is, man. It's always been this way. It'll always be this way. This is what's right. It's just what's right to have a gang of people walking around that basically enforce you getting robbed and some other invading culture getting hooked up and having a blind eye turned to their crimes while you get sorted out with, somebody goes through your shit with a microscope looking like, what was this right here? I see what you said. I see you like this comment. Let's bring you in front of the judge. All right. How long does it take before people start asking these questions? But in terms of how can we think of this and what can we say to people as these conversations come up? Because I mean, I've seen everything from like, I mean, I've heard people, dude, I mean, just talking about like these things that I'm mentioning now, there's like people that'll be like, you fucking bootlicker, but then I'm like, well, hold the fuck on, guy, because you're talking about this anarchy type shit. Well, who's going to enforce? Everybody just does, well, you just don't, violate anybody else's rights. Okay, well, who's going to enforce that? Who's going to decide what those rights are? Oh, well, we'll have like a vote, or, we'll have, okay, well, who's going to enforce that? Well, we'll designate. Okay, so a police force, basically, is what you're saying. So, I mean, it's something that unless you're going to live by yourself in the fucking woods and catch fish, I don't know how this really works out, where it's that simple and straightforward. In terms of how can we think of this and how can we talk to other people, for my money, again, man, is just reducing it to the simplest possible thing. How does this make my life better? Tell me how this makes my life better. Tell me how working this many hours, paying out this much. I mean, I'm coughing up such a degree of my life to get this money, and then coughing up that money for which I exchanged part of my life just to get something that I don't especially want, or pay for something that I don't get shit out of. How exactly does that make my life better? And let other people answer these fucking questions. And when they can't, then you can start floating ideas of like, why exactly do I need a militarized police force roaming my town? Why exactly do I need dogs sniffing my luggage? And I mean, the answer to that is pretty simple. Well, because, you got these people roaming the streets with guns. You got these people smuggling bombs onto this, that, and the other. Okay, wait. You say people. What people? Because this shit ain't hard to figure out. I mean, it didn't used to be hard to figure out until people stopped keeping tabs on it because someone's feelings might get hurt. But yeah, as far as, what any of this looks like in the future, I mean, I really thought for the longest time that there would be cops that were like, man, I'm not fucking doing that. I'm not doing this shit. But like I heard mentioned in regards to East Germany, you see this stuff about, I've seen a few things about East Germany. This kind of shit interests me. And they're talking about the informant networks. And they're talking about, I think it was like 1 in every 5 persons had at some point informed for the Stasi. So that's the state police, the organization for state security, if you will. What like a Russian would call KGB, right? Stasi, that's the East German version. That I think it was 1 in every 5, maybe it was 2 in every 5, a fucking lot, whatever it was, had informed at some point for the Stasi. And when we think of it, with like a 90s brain or like a 2000s brain, you're thinking of it as like you're getting snatched up, you're getting shoved in a chair and like, listen, fuckstick, you're going to inform on all these people. You're going to tell us what your neighbors are up to, or I'm going to crack your head. And like, wow, man, that must really suck. And I read about this interview with this guy that was part of this Stasi. And he was like, no, man, it's nothing like that. No, people were lining up. They want to show themselves as like, yeah, dude, I'm in it, dude. I'm part of the home team. I'm good for it, dude. I'll inform on anybody. And they got so much shit that was pretty much useless. But some stuff that they could, like, oh yeah, I'll bring this guy in here. We'll question him, maybe get him to, talk on somebody he doesn't want to talk on. But finding people willing to rat out, finding people willing to do this shit was apparently never the problem. And that's the same thing I think we're seeing with these Brits, is that there's no shortage of these fucking cops and these fucking judges that are willing to like, yeah, man, I'll go out here and crack somebody in the head. Oh, you're upset that your daughter got murdered. Oh, wow, I'm so sorry about that. You better not talk about it or you're going to fucking prison. And they'll do that shit with a smile on their face. So what can we really take away from that, man? What can we pass on to other people? I guess is just the facts of the matter. That, look, do these people really serve your interests? When you see these people out here enthusiastically hollering for mask mandates, enthusiastically hollering for like, yeah, lock up all these protesters and these rioters and these people that don't stick to the program, whatever the fucking program is that's sponsored by the state, whatever it is, no matter how contradictory it is to the thing from yesterday. Maybe those are the kind of people that we need to keep at arm's distance, that we need to not be so open with and say, hey, here's what I think, and hey, and just be open and direct with them. Keep them at arm's distance. And first, like we said straight away, protect yourself, right? Because, I mean, just as much as like, I want a fucking Fed post, yeah, sure, and I'm sure a lot of people do. But then the cheap thing is that like, do you feel better now? Like you just yelled and screamed and shit? and nothing's going to really come of it. Like the most that might come of it is somebody shows up at the door talking about, hey man, I heard what you said on your shitty podcast. Now you're going to fucking answer some questions. Oh dear, now we are at an impasse, right? So maybe keep some of your powder dry in that regard. But again, do spread the word and do be selective about who you say and what you say to them. But again, passing the word that like, hey man, it don't always have to be like this. There was a time it wasn't like this. It might not be this way in the future. And a lot of times, as with a lot of good ideas, sometimes all it really takes is just planting those small seeds that like, hey man, what would you think if this? What about that hypothetically? What if this or that went away? What then? But yeah, we went a little long today because I figured I owed, because I hadn't put anything out in a long time. But until next time, man, I guess there's been a rash of bannings. I can't believe this is still on, everywhere that it is. But if you're into it, feel free to share it with somebody. And you can find me on Telegram at, t.me, the Abuse Hour, or on Twitter at CoffeeLong14, or on, I'm on the gram still somehow. I think it's niceguy.coffee floating around there still, for the time being anyway, enjoying that. I love the pictures. I love the little pictures. But until next time, man, keep your eyes on the horizon, keep your neck out of the noose. I have been Coffee. These are my takes.